105.7 Light FM. Journey's there. Morning Dave is here. We're up to 8:42 now.
Advisory services offered through Second Half Financial Partners, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. The opinions voiced and information provided in this material are for general informational purposes only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which investments are appropriate for you, please consult with a financial advisor. Second Half Financial Partners, LLC does not provide tax or legal advice. Please consult your tax or legal advisor regarding your particular situation.
Just because it's general information doesn't mean we ain't right, all right? Time to check in and find out what's going on with your money this morning with the help from Philip Statler from Statler Financial Services in downtown Sebring on the phone with us. Boy, what a night difference can make, isn't it, Philip?
Oh, man, I'm telling you what, Dave. Just to come to a ceasefire and open up the Strait of Hormuz, I mean, that was a huge deal, and the futures went crazy up, and oil went crazy down.
Oh, gosh, yes. I happened to be watching the network news last night about 6:40. They paused for a second for a commercial, and then all of a sudden, bleed, up comes this special report flag on the thing, and they announced that President Trump, number one, story beforehand was, we're less than an hour and a half away from Armageddon happening in Iran. He's going to blow the crud out of everything in Iran. We'll be right back after this message. Then up comes President Trump announces a ceasefire, and everything all of a sudden turned green. Yesterday, we ended up with what, on balance, I think we have to call a pretty flat day. The Dow was off by 85, Standard & Poor's up by 5, NASDAQ up by, a tenth of a percent, Russell up by 0.17%. It was all kind of boring. And I look at the futures, and just about 7 p.m. last night, the futures just went absolutely batzoid, didn't they?
They did. They did. And they continue to kind of stay in that realm right now. You got to like what you're seeing there when it comes to the numbers. I mean, everything's up over 2.5% this morning and better as we get ready to head into the open here.
And the question, of course, becomes, is this thing going to stick? Israel immediately promptly announced, well, that doesn't mean that we can't stop dropping rocks on the guys up in Lebanon, the Hezbollah people in Lebanon. So they're still throwing rocks at each other, but so far, at the very least, it looks like the ceasefire has held so far. I haven't heard updates as to whether or not Iran has actually let somebody else's tankers through the straits yet. The original positioning was that they wanted to do it with supervision and escort from the Iranian Navy, which, given the fact they've mined the place, doesn't sound all that unreasonable on its face, does it?
No, it doesn't, but that means it's going to be a slow process to get the boats through there.
Absolutely. So there's a baby Ruth in every swimming pool, but it's still, at the very least, there's some progress there, and that's got us feeling really optimistic this morning. And that's really the only real market driver that happens. If we don't have a fly in the ointment anywhere over the next 24 hours, well, we just saw a major repricing, and the price of oil was amazing. You and I were giggling before we went on the air. Price of oil goes down by 17.5% plus almost immediately after that announcement. This may be the first time I've ever actually felt sorry for a big oil company.
It's definitely a big drop. Back below 95. You got to love it.
Oh, gosh, yeah, but all of a sudden you look at if you're Exxon, and like I said, they don't deserve much sympathy because they're awful darn big, but suddenly my gross revenue falls by over 16% overnight. You kind of go, huh? So it's all good news for the consumer, and I have a hunch that ExxonMobil and the other big boys will probably survive the shock, you think?
I think so. I think they'll be pleasantly okay with that.
I suspect so. Other tidbits out this morning, we were talking about this before we went on the air, too. Report coming out of one of the big brokerage firms. The dividend yield of the Standard & Poor's 500, you and I have been talking about how I hesitate to use the word overpriced, but yeah, the multiples have been going way, way high. That means the dividend yield from the Standard & Poor's 500 now at a 50-year low. See, these principal prices aren't always good news, especially for people that have dividend stocks, are they?
Well, yeah. If you're trying to live off the dividend and the price is higher when you buy it, then that means that the dividend as a percentage is lower, and it makes it tough when you start looking at the S&P 500 and the expected future multiples and those type of things. Um, it's tough to live off a dividend just off of S&P 500.
Yeah, I haven't done a price earnings run on the S&P 500 for a few weeks anyway, but when you start getting into 22 and 23 and 24 to 1 price earnings ratios, getting income off a stock that's priced that high, it just ain't going to work out to your favor if you look at the percentages, does it?
No, it doesn't. You could go at this point, get a CD or a high yield savings account and get a better yield than what you get on the S&P 500.
Pretty close to it in the process. Other tidbits out this morning. Apple reports that their iPhone 17 is actually outpacing sales from the iPhone 16, which kind of surprises me given the fact their margins are going down with the increase in expense on memory chips and the like, but evidently folks are expecting that to stick, so they're stocking up on the current model instead of waiting for the 18.
Well, yeah. It's, Apple's always it's a challenge sometimes to figure out their methodology for their releases, right? They and that affects their stock price. Those type of things do, and I suspect the 17 is going to be the leader for a while, given the flip, the fold up phone's not quite ready to come out yet.
From what they've been saying, and I'm hearing leaks saying that they're having some difficulties with some of the specs on their foldable phone that's being rumored heavily for the 18 series. It could be interesting. Sounds like the 17 may very well be a survivor. We're not into earnings season quite yet. The big market mover today, probably overall, is going to be at 2 o'clock when we get the meeting minutes from the Open Market Committee of the Fed on Monday. Was saying, probably carries more weight. Normally they're looking for indications as to whether we're going to hold steady or we're going to go down, but this time around they actually included the option of maybe even increasing rates in the future. So I suspect people will probably be reading the minutes real carefully when they come out at 2 p.m., wouldn't you expect?
I think so. I mean, obviously the big market mover was last night, right? And as we head into the market open today. On the other front, metals are jumping today. Precious metals are up, so it's helping companies like Newmont Mining, Freeport, McMoran. Freeport's a big copper miner. They're getting a nice jump this morning. They're up like 6.5% based on copper getting a big jump this morning. Again, because of some of the ceasefire stuff.
Absolutely. And yeah, if this sticks, it's a complete repricing, and it's almost going to make a lot of the quarterly reports that we're getting in almost meaningless if this sticks, because all of a sudden fuel prices back down again, and companies like Delta Airlines are suddenly saying, well, it's not half as bad as we thought it was. Speaking of Delta, I understand they're kind of breaking the dam open as far as earnings reports. How did they do last quarter?
Well, Delta did well. I mean, they're still seeing a lot of people traveling. They beat on earnings, 64 cents a share versus 57 cents a share, revenue ahead of expectations. They don't see any decline coming. It seems to be full force ahead. Now, one thing I didn't really realize until I was reading this report is that Delta owns their own refinery. Did you know that?
No.
Yes, they own their own oil refinery. And they said they expect that to add about $300 million to their bottom line, or top line. I can't remember which it was now, in this next quarter. So, they can kind of at least have a little leeway in controlling their fuel pricing, but they're up this morning like 12.5%.
I had no idea that they had their own fuel supply chain. That's new, and that's because of where I fly. That's my airline of choice, and I didn't know anything about that. That's fascinating.
And obviously all the other airlines and cruise lines are right on the back of Delta, up today anywhere from 9 to 12% this morning.
I've got to believe seeing a decrease that big in the price of fuel, that completely shuffles the pre-market, which categories are hot and which ones aren't, don't they?
Yeah, it does. It really does.
What else we got out there?
So another popular name, Levi Strauss. So Levi Strauss had a good quarter as well. Let me dig down here a little deeper and get the whole numbers here. But they came in at 42 cents a share versus 37. Revenue ahead of expectations at $1.74 billion. Here's what's interesting about them is they've started doing direct to consumer sales. And this past quarter, direct to consumer sales became 50% of their revenue. That's got to be good news for them.
Oh yeah, less dependence on brick and mortar stores and more to direct sales. I'd never thought of them as being a mail order company. Did you?
I didn't either. But so they're trading up right now over 11.5%.
Holy crud! Good news all the way around today. Delta and Levi's, everything we put on and everything we put things on to fly it.
We get into, right?
Yeah. What else we got for gossip out there this morning?
Yeah, don't have much else in terms of earnings. I already mentioned some of the mining companies. We did see shares of Super Microcomputer jump this morning, about 4.5%. They were trying to figure out why. Oh, they're still investigating their whole indictment of their employees. Not sure exactly why they're getting a little bump this morning, but they are. So
maybe somebody just decided to get a job at Wendy's and get out of the company. Resetting the table. It was on balance not a bad day yesterday, but on balance it kind of flat to maybe slightly green. And all of that changed during the nightly news last night. 45 minutes before we open, how green are we this morning?
Still really green, Dave. The Dow Jones Industrials are up almost 2.75%. S&P 500 is up almost 2.7%. NASDAQ 100 is up 3.5% right now, and the Russell 2000 up 3.75% right now. Big moves. Then we got silver up 7.75% to $77.56 an ounce. Gold's up almost 3.1% this morning, getting close to 5,000 yet, $4,828 an ounce. And crude oil down, 18% to $92.44 a barrel.
Everything is moving. I noticed even Bitcoin is up by like 3.9% this morning. Everybody's happy today. Overseas markets also about the same. Looking at the Asian Pacific Rim this morning, they had enough time to respond as well. The average Asian Pacific Rim market was up by like 2.5%. The two mainland Chinese markets average up over 3% at the close this morning. Europe is having a party as well. Everybody's green, and the average European index is up by, get this number, they're dwarfing us, almost 4.5% halfway through the European trading day. Funny, they got that Brent crude there. They're a little bit more insulated than I thought they were, but they do depend a lot on the Strait of Hormuz too, don't they?
Yeah, they do. They do.
Absolutely. So it's green all over. If I made this my retirement plan, I'd be really, really happy, but I have a doubt it's going to continue going at this rate for very long. How do I find you to get a dose of sanity as far as planning my retirement out?
Yeah, it's definitely been a volatile 4 months. As we've headed into 2026, and volatility can be hazardous to your retirement, and so that's why you want to make sure you have a plan in place. Give us a call 863-382-0037 to schedule your 30-minute conversation to make sure you're on the right path to that retirement you always dreamed of. And then join us this weekend for the Statler Financial Radio Show, 6 a.m. and noon on Saturday, 10 a.m. Sunday morning on Highlands News Talk, 7:30 a.m. and 95.3 FM.
And we'll take all the good news we can get and be here tomorrow morning and put it all together in a big ball for everybody again. Fair enough?
Fair enough, buddy. Have a great day.
Thank you, my friend. It's 105.7 Light FM and Statler Financial Services. Philip Statler.
Hey, folks, thank you for joining us today. Take care. Join us again tomorrow. Bye now.